Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. Is it time? I believe it is, isn't it? Yeah.
8:01.
Great.
Yep.
So and thank you, Janet, for agreeing to take minutes tonight. That's really helpful.
I'll
Thank you.
run them by you.
Okay, absolutely. I'm happy to help. Calling the meeting to order at 6:01, I think. And so I just said who's present. I don't think I see any members of the public here tonight. I know that Chris Falls could not make it, and I don't think Marla was planning to come tonight. So it's just us. That's great. So there's no public comments. And the next thing is to review two sets of minutes. One is from the January meeting, and one is from the February 2nd meeting, that really quick meeting, or short meeting we had. Do you want me to share the screen on these? Because I can. So these are for January 21. If you've already read them, that's fine. Anybody have any comments specifically on the January 21 minutes?
I read them and I had no comments.
Anyone want to move to accept as written?
I'll move to accept them as written if no one else has any issues.
Is there a second?
West, second.
Okay, so we've got a motion to accept in a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Great.
No.
Hearing none. All in favor of accepting, just say your last name.
West, aye.
McDonald, aye.
Brown, yes.
Broden, aye.
Palmer, yes. Okay, so accepted. And then the other one is from February 2nd. And it was not terribly long. We just talked about two things that evening. Any comments, changes?
One typographical error.
Okay.
It should be informal appraisal rather than appraiser before Eileen's name.
Oh, here we go. Appraisal. Thank you. All right, AL. Okay. So with that one change, anything else?
I'll move to accept these. They're fine by me.
Thank you. Second.
West, second.
Any further discussion? All right. Whoops. All in favor? Let me put these. All in favor based with that one change?
West, aye.
McDonald, aye.
Brown, aye.
Broden, aye.
Palmer, aye. Great. That was easy. Okay. So the next thing on our minutes are committee reports. Anybody volunteer to start?
I'll do the assessors. The board of assessors have met a couple of times. We are currently working on the fiscal year 22 budget. So I have nothing to add in the way of open space.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to?
I have been to the Conservation Commission meetings, and they're still dealing with that horrific problem at 32 High Street. And they're doing a very professional job about it. And it's really the amount of hours they've had to devote to it is excessive by most of the projects that they have to address. And even Mark Stinson from the Department of Wetland Protection, he complimented Mala for the work she's doing on that project and how she's running that meeting. So they're proceeding, and it's going to take them maybe another meeting or so, coupled with, I don't know how much money it's going to cost the owner of that property to get it in suitable form and, and overcome some of the difficulties he's created with some of the ad hoc changes he did with the water flow on that. And but they're doing a great job if you ask me. So that's all I guess I have to contribute from the Conservation Commission.
Charlie, did the water actually go into the new house across the street's basement besides all the
I don't believe so. I didn't hear about it doing damage to the house, but apparently it did a lot of damage to a newly seeded lawn, and now it's covered with a lot of debris.
I walk that road regularly, and it is a mess.
Yeah. And, way back when, putting the Polish Credit Union in, and they had a lot of problems there. And by the time they I remember the guy complaining to the commission. I was on the commission at that time. And he said it cost us about $70,000 to get everything straightened away. And I'm not sure what this gentleman is going to have to come across with to straighten that out. But I would expect it's going to be in that level of commitment of resources. But it goes to show you how important the Wetland Protection Act is, and what it does for the town to address issues like this.
Oh, that's so sad for everyone.
Yeah.
It really is. And I was, of course, the planning board has heard presentations because of the disturbance that exceeded the usual. But the gentleman that's their professional engineer, Bucky Sparkle, I think his name is. Yeah. He's very impressive.
Yes, he's very capable too. Yeah.
I hope he just doesn't give up.
I hope he doesn't either. He's not only diplomatic and professional, he seems quite knowledgeable and patient.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thanks, Charlie, on that. I did have a text from Diana Fetterman that's probably fits under Conservation Commission announcements. Two things. As you know, she's working extremely closely with the Manhan Meadows project. And the recommendation actually that came from Dan LaValle and was supported very strongly by Tammy Walunas, who has, I think, a son at Smith Vocational School, was that they would make the benches. The purchase of all the materials has already, we've already got the funding for that. But there was this question of whether or not town residents wanted to volunteer to, actually assemble the benches. But Tammy was able to facilitate a contact at Smith Vocational. So the benches are going to be made by their students in whatever class that would be. And that'll happen after February. So she wanted that to be announced. And the other thing is that the Southampton Cultural Council has supported this person named John Root. I guess he's a town resident. I don't know him. He is doing a Zoom presentation on March 2nd at 7 o'clock. I think co-hosted by the Conservation Commission. And the presentation is going to be on pollinators. So we wanted that announcement made. I guess the title is Attracting Birds, Butterflies, Bees, and Other Beneficials. And the Conservation Commission, Marla, signed a letter of support for that. So and I think we remember that we had, that is one of our potential 2021 goals, was supporting pollinator garden, maybe a town one. And I know in my backyard, I've been trying to plant more pollinators because of the extreme value there. We can learn a lot by this. So that's on March 2nd. And I don't have the Zoom invitation, but I guess that's forthcoming, maybe through Conservation Commission. I don't know. 2 at 7 p.m. Okay. So that was with the two announcements from Diana. Anybody else want to go on and give another report?
I think his presentation should be called The Birds and the Bees, but other than that.
What about the butterflies and the other beneficials? Okay. So, Select Board, does anything from you, Rini? Regarding open space, you're muted, Rini. Yep.
I think the only thing is, we had the MVP meeting. That's not really select board, but I think there is a plan to have 4 separate workshops later on this month. And the first meeting, the core team kickoff went really, really well. Janet, were you on that?
No,
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it was done by Fuss and O'Neill, and they did a great presentation, and they're having the next step, which will be, I think, the 24th or 6th of February. They're having 4 separate workshops. So the purpose is to identify a plan for a project for the MVP grant.
Who is on that? Who's on the committee, the core
The
committee?
team included, I believe, fire chief, police chief, EMD, Caitlin from the Board of Health was there. I think who else was on the call?
So it's essentially the staff of our town, not committee representation.
Well, Caitlin was there, of course. I'd have to look in the invite list. But anyway, it was really well done, well facilitated, and we generated probably a list of 30 names. And by the way, a lot of you are on the name list of people that would be stakeholders that represent either various committees in town, boards in town, like Holyoke Gas and Electric, Eversource. You know, we talked about what Southampton is vulnerable towards. And one of them, of course, is weather and flooding and that sort of thing. And so they just sort of did this checklist of what vulnerabilities are in particular exist within Southampton. And then they're going to send out invites, and for the 4 workshops, they're going to generate, I think one will be like 1 to 3 and 3 to 5 or something like that. So for some people that work later in the day, and we discuss clustering them by all the emergency personnel together versus a representative from lots of different slices of the community together to actually identify next steps in terms of a project.
Great. Okay.
Excuse me, what does MVP stand for?
Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant.
Okay, go. I thought that was it.
It's
Yeah,
heavily focused on climate resilience.
Mhm.
So they just gave a great slide deck overview about some projects that were done and, you know, what are concerns in our town and what's the infrastructure. And, you know, we gave some history about the microburst. We talked about, you know, some of the seminal events in town that focused on either weather or other, you know, events that have happened that, you know, historically could be a problem again in the future. It was really well done.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Rini.
Yeah.
Let's see, Janet, do you want to say anything about CPA?
yeah, we discussed the Pomeroy Mountain and passed a motion that we would have $1,500 from operating expenses for the appraisal. And then on Manhattan Meadows, we moved to present the project to town meeting. The Barnes Aquifer will have to be postponed until we can get some quotes. And then Virginia commented that the Board of Selectmen meeting on February 23rd is really important. Would like for CPC members and other people to attend that. So that's basically it.
Okay, great.
Tell me again why it's important on the 23rd?
Right, what is that?
There's a report on the old town hall study.
Yes.
Okay.
The architects are coming in, and we have a couple of documents that I'm sure they'll be made public. They did an envelope study of the old town hall.
Yeah.
And they looked at it, and then they sliced it by what sort of, you know, regulations, current regulations, what would it involve to fix just the current regulations, and then, yeah. It's very telling. I mean, the pictures tell a lot. It's a very old building.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. I just want to clarify that the CPC did approve, thankfully, the up to $1,500 towards an appraisal if we need it for that property on Durrell's Path, or next to Durrell's Path. I hope, and I will report a little bit more later, it's not going to be needed if the landowners just are interested in allowing us to move forward with the purchase without the appraisal, but we don't know the answer to that now. Planning board has not had any particular, in fact, where our meeting is canceled, there hasn't been a lot of business. So therefore, there's nothing special for me to report on planning board related to open space. Okay.
On planning board, I went through some old files, and I did find that there was, I don't know if it's still in effect, a rule in zoning in this town that no lot could be narrower, no building lot could be narrower than 80% of the required frontage in a subdivision.
Really?
Yeah.
So you called me about that, April, and asked me, and I think it was specifically related to the subdivision of a property on Fulmer Road that's privately owned by one person.
Correct.
The answer I got was that's not like, I mean, it is a subdivision in the true meaning of the word, but it isn't a subdivision in the sense that there's going to be a little road in there or anything like that.
I know, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an A&R where you're taking a lot and you're subdividing it into 2 building lots. So, you know, the A&R I did when I owned land in town, that was part of the regulations.
Okay.
I could not go any narrower than 80% of the required frontage.
Do you, can you reference where you found that? And I will bring it up again.
I'll find it. Yeah, I will find it for you.
Oh, that would be really, really helpful. And I say that in part because there's another landowner in town who actually has asked me some questions, and I keep referring her to, well, comes up all the time where we refer people to the building inspector to, you know, give them sort of preliminary understanding of what they can and can't do with their lot. And I actually urged her to come to the planning board meeting to raise her questions, and she's specifically interested in subdividing a lot so one daughter can have one area and the other daughter can have the other one. So I really need to get that reference. That would be great.
All right.
It's not specific in zoning. It's not like outlined really clearly in our zoning bylaws.
I got to look at it.
I don't know if it is.
It's been a week, so I can't even remember where I saw it.
Okay, it's all right. Thank you for your thoroughness. And I think it's important that we kind of flesh these things out. And as you know, we're in the process of reviewing all the zoning bylaws. And that's been going on as long as I've been on a planning board, and that's almost 3 years, and it preceded my time. So we still haven't finished the going over part of it and looking, and then ultimately going back to town meeting for revision approval. And that's a ways away. Thanks very much, April. Very good. Any other reports from anything else specific to the town business that you know of? I do know that the open space and recreation plan has been preliminarily accepted by the state, but a letter came back to our town administrator and to our consultant, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, Ken Comia, with some pretty specific things that needed to be completed, finished, addressed, et cetera. And I think that's in process right now. So we only have preliminary approval on the open space and recreation plan that I know of at this point. Okay. Another announcement. It's not actually on the agenda, but I'll just tell you, I forgot to mention it at the last meeting. In order to submit the second grant that Conservation Commission is submitting for the bridge that they want as part of the Manhan Meadow Sanctuary improvement, letters of support were going to be really, really helpful. And Diana's doing that, has already submitted that grant. That's another Mass Trails grant. And she asked Open Space Committee to do that, and we were in a time crunch. So I kind of made an executive decision that Open Space Committee would approve that. So I did sign just a simple letter of support for that. And it's probably important you put that in the minutes. So that was sent at some point in January. Okay. So there is some stuff that we don't have good information about yet tonight. So therefore, I'm already aware that we're probably going to have another meeting in a couple of weeks. That's why I'm kind of going through things quickly tonight, so we're not spending a terribly long time, and hopefully we'll have our full committee at that point. One thing to know is that I have not heard anything about the neighborhood outreach project grant that we talked about at the last meeting. It was submitted in time, which was a week ago tomorrow. So it was last Friday. That was the deadline. And I got a confirmation that it was received with a very nice thank you. And they intended to be reviewing it this week. So I was crossing my fingers that we'd hear a result, but we don't. Why is this so important? Well, it's important because if we're going to do this, we're on a really tight time frame. So we're going to have to, if we get this grant, we're going to have to start looking at, who can help with what aspect of the whole production that would be a part of the grant. The second thing that's pretty important relates back to the project that Charlie's been working on so hard, and that's the Barnes Aquifer project. What is in the grant is requests for funding for printing as well as for the mailing of letters to the town, which will announce all of our programs, as well as some educational materials, which I'm hoping would be, one of them would be the project you're working on, Charlie. Mm-hmm. Do you want to, at this moment, do you want to talk about where you are with working with PVPC for just the project itself, the wording and the brochure, et cetera? Do you want to talk about that right now?
Okay, fine. We have the first draft of the map, and it was passed in front of a number of people on the Conservation Commission as well as the Open Space Committee, and they made a bunch of suggestions, and I passed them on to Jake Dollinger at PVPC, who was doing the map, and this was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I contacted him about 10 days later, and I said, had he had any problems with the changes that were anticipated in the map? And he said no, and he was going to get back with me sometime at the end of last week or this week, and I haven't heard from him, so I'm going to have to make contact with him again. But the map is reasonably well defined based on the input from people in the town and the various committees. And yesterday, and I think I've sent all this out in an email to the Open Space Committee, the Conservation Commission, at least Marla and Daniel, and I reviewed where we stand, and I had a first pass on what the verbiage should be in the pamphlet. And it needs to be refined. I want to talk to Randall about the recycle center and requirements that they have on the waste that they receive and how they receive it, that kind of stuff. So that's in gestation, that verbal content. And I haven't passed it back to Patty, who may have some more comments. She has written 2 paragraphs initially to introduce the verbal content of the pamphlet. So basically we're holding in a holding pattern, waiting for the map, and also collecting more data on the verbal content of the pamphlet, or the written content of the pamphlet.
Okay. So you sent an email yesterday stating essentially this: you hope to have a modified version. Didn't happen, I know. No, you tried to. And you also told us what the modifications were that you added. Little Mountain, removed the location identified as Pleasant Street Conservation Area, added the location of Wolf Hill Sanctuary and Clearwater Woodland Conservation Area, changed the name of Parson Memorial Forest to Manhan Meadows. Now, I had an email from Marla, who said that they're two different things. Parson Memorial Forest and Manhan Meadows are two different, now they might be right next to each other, but they're two separate areas. So
You also have the Hazel Young Trail.
Is that in the same area? Is that in the same area?
That's close to East Street. I think what was the new trail is going to be, it has been identified as Hazel Young. And Janet she's gotten back with me on this too. But there's also the logistics of that, the map itself, because I didn't put the library is not on the map. You know, again, orienting the people to what is in the town versus the aquifer. So you have the choice of Parsons, Hazel Young, and as a overall thing, I guess it was thought, at least from the inputs I have, and all the inputs were not uniform. You know, I had to adjudicate some of the differences between people's opinions, and Manhan Meadows was sort of like the what came to the top.
I see. So it's not to say that you're not identifying those. It's just simply saying you had to make a decision as to which one. And did you decide to use the library also as a
No,
place, as a
I didn't
landmark?
put the library on
major.
there as yet. Not as yet. It can be, but that was not one of the, you had a list of 10 things or something like that I forwarded recently to you. And those are, the library wasn't mentioned as as something that would be critical, especially when you have Manhan Meadows, or however you identify that, it's going to be very close to the library as far as fonts and printing and so on. And that's maybe a congestion issue.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about any of this? I know we don't have the map to flash up right now. Does anybody have any thoughts on it? Everyone did see that draft map, right? Remember that came on through a couple weeks ago? Anyone want to comment at this point? Okay. Well, I'm fine with your decision to just call it Manhan Meadows, because I think that's kind of the name that is getting to be very, very well known around here. I kind of think it would be nice if it could fit to put the library. Do we have the town hall on there too? I can't remember.
Yes, we do. We do.
Yeah, so
the town hall's there.
And we have the Norris School as well.
Yes.
So I guess if it's possible, I think the library gives us, do we have Conant Park on there?
I'm not, I don't think I have the time. I don't believe so, but you'll get another copy of the map, and then we'll have another pass over it and see what in addition, because then we'll be able to say, okay, if we put more stuff in it, it's going to be more congested. And the general scope of the thing is to make sure people understand where the aquifer is versus the town, significant town buildings.
Okay.
We have Wolf Hill, we have the Zipta Conservation Farms, we have the school. We've taken off the pump head because Marla mentioned that the police and the water commissioners would not like that to be so easily detected on this map.
Yeah.
So
everybody understands that, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think as far as going towards Westfield, the last thing is the country club. You know, just again, and we do have some of the, you know, the watershed in around Thai comedy that's identified too, as well as all the specific parcels that have been particularly identified as preserving the Barnes Aquifer or the groundwater.
Okay.
They're going to be on there too. So we'll get another map, and I'm sure we'll iterate it one more time if there's some serious issues that have to be addressed.
Okay. Okay. Now, back to this whole discussion of the grant, and why does this all delved together. And here's why. Because if we get the grant with the amount that I propose that we get, we will have enough money to do the mailing and the printing with that grant money. If we don't get it, or we don't get all of it, then we have to go back to CPC and ask for the money for the printing and the mailing of the brochure. This is not for the map, because the map already has to go to CPC. All right, that is not the big maps that go to town hall.
Oh yeah, the posters.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
You're talking two sides maps, a large one for town hall,
that's what I'm thinking,
smaller
yeah.
ones for people's own to have.
On the pamphlet, it should be as big as the typical conservation land map that we have now, about that size. I don't know if you can see.
Can you? I can't quite tell. Can you tell me kind of inches?
Oh, it's about the size of, let's see, that would be about 1 foot in one direction and maybe 8 inches in the other, something like that. 12 by 8 approximately? Yeah, something like that. And on one side would be the map of the aquifer. On the other side, it would be all the verbal content or the written content. And then it's folded up. It has to be designed by whoever we have print it, folded up. So when you open it, you have the name of what it is, and you have maybe the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Committee and maybe the Park Department symbols on there. And then you open it, you got the map. On the back side, you'd have all the written content.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay,
so this is kind of important because this is, a standard piece of paper that goes through my printer is 8.5 by 11.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're talking larger than 12 by 8, aren't you?
Okay, I might, I have one of them here. Hold on.
This sounds very similar to the other conservation maps in provision.
I think that's what he said before, yeah.
As luck would have it, I got a dozen of them here. Typical leftover from, and this is the size right here.
All right. I think that's Janet just said that. It's for that, and that's larger than 12 by 8.
Yeah, okay. On one side, this must be about 12 in one direction and maybe 18 in the other direction. 12 by 18. That's at least we'll have to do the cost. We could make it smaller like the maps they have presently right here for the hiking, but we'll see. We'll just see what it's going to cost.
Well, all right. So this is important because now to the next part of the discussion related to this. Again, my thought was that if we get this grant funding, we would send out not only notice of the programs that we're going to hold, but also educational materials, including this brochure/map that you're talking about. Okay? If not, then we have to go to CPC for that particular thing. We have to revise our thinking because we wouldn't have all that funding for the programs. We have to decide if we can do this without the funding or not. That's another topic. Okay? Mm-hmm. In order to go to CPC, and we do need to have that for the next meeting, and that's going to be in March, right, Janet? We're going to have another CPC meeting? March 3rd, correct. So we need quotes. And so we need to know size, and we need to know, and you have to go to 3 places for the quotes. And we need to know numbers. And there's the critical question. How many are we going to get printed? Are we going to send this to 2,500 households? That's approximately what goes out in terms of, I think, census data. And of course, not everybody is a homeowner in town. Even if they have a private well, I still think they should get this map. This is important, very much important. Or are we only sending it to specific people who are perhaps over the aquifer? That's what we have to talk about right now. So what are people's thoughts on this?
So my first thought is that we make a version of this map, Charlie, 8.5 by 14. So it's a normal size. It can fit in a normal envelope with anything else. I'm happy to go to Paradise Copies once we have it to get pricing for you, because I'm up there all the time. And I personally think it ought to go to every household. I mean, we all are, especially households, you know, even if it's a renter living in the complex behind Cumberland Farms, they should understand where the water that they're turning on and turning off and drinking is coming from. And if the town is buying property to protect the watershed and the resources, then every member, any voting member in town, whether they have a private well or not, should be educated.
Okay.
Is it possible to include, like April said, something to go into a number 10 envelope in the next water bill? Is that legal, legitimate for us?
Well, that won't go to everybody in town. She pointed out that it's important for even people that are renting receive it.
Yeah. But how can we get it to renters? I don't know.
I think they are part of the town. Oh, that is a good question. I don't know how we get renters.
But we cover a lot of people by putting it in the water bill. Or the tax bill. Well, the tax bill wouldn't get renters either.
Okay, well, that could be looked into. We have to look into that.
What were you talking about, Cindy? You're looking into what?
Well, she's suggesting, can we see if this can be inserted into the water bill?
Yeah.
But my point was,
Right.
not everybody in town gets a water bill.
Right.
Some people have wells too. Yeah.
If you have a well, do you get a water bill? I don't know.
No.
No, all
I
right.
have a well and I don't get a water bill.
Okay, so therefore, that does, Janet, eliminate a lot of people, because there's a lot of people who have wells that aren't on public water. Okay, the second thing is, you suggested 8.5, wait a minute, I wrote this down.
By 14.
8.5 by 14, is that what you said, April? Yeah. And
My first suggestion was about 11 by, I think it's 16, 11 by 16, if it's mimicking what we did for conservation lands.
will that go into a number 10 envelope, 11 by 16?
No, this has to go into
Well,
something bigger. But we could have some like this and have them distributed at the town meeting and things like that.
Well,
It's just the cost of printing on an odd size like that has got to be way more than doing a normal size sheet of paper that is regularly available.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I really do. We have to look at how many colors, are we doing 2 tones, et cetera. Those are all, what kind of paper, is it got a glossy finish, et cetera. All those things have to be looked at. We can't really go to Paradise until we have the specifics on that, okay? But do I hear more discussion about whether we send this out to every household? I'm in favor of it going to every household.
Yeah, I am too.
Anyone else? Charlie, you okay with it going to every household?
Oh, yeah, no problem. No
And how
problem.
about you, Janet?
have to incorporate several different lists. Maybe we could talk to Lucy and see, if we get the water bill, if we get the voter people, several different kind of lists involved to get everybody.
Okay.
She might have some ideas.
This
Yes,
is
she
street
does.
listing, I think that is the most comprehensive.
Okay.
What is?
The street listing.
Free list, uh-huh.
There's
Okay.
there's a Excel file that has the list of everyone by address and alphabetically in town.
Is there a way to make a mailing list out of the street list?
I would imagine, I have cut and pasted and, clustered, various parts of that report. We could probably remove duplicates so that it wouldn't go out to multiple people in the same household. I think there's ways of getting a pretty comprehensive list.
I bet Ed or Lucy could help us with that.
Yeah. Lucy's out until next Tuesday.
Okay, well, we don't need the quote right this minute. Okay, so, so that's already a big answer right there. And Charlie, and I'm in favor of what April said, was that we try to work this in a way that's more standardized sizing and standard, can go into a number 10 envelope, a business size envelope. That would be cheaper. And my experience with Paradise, and we do have to get 3 quotes. So there's a place called ProMark in in Easthampton. We know Puffer's closed. ProMark is someplace that Conservation Commission has gone as well. And the other one is it's called the Package Store. It used to be here in Southampton. It was where the urgent care center is currently. And they are now over in the Hampton Ponds Plaza. And because
he's coming back to town, by the way.
Oh, by all means, then we support him.
Where's he coming back to?
I'm not quite at liberty to say yet, but
Okay.
I think.
Okay,
Well,
that's good though. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, and the other one is Copycat. I think they're in Northampton.
Okay, so that's 4. I'm supportive of the Package Store because he lives in town and he's been,
Yeah,
he might even do a break for us. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
okay, that's good to know. Let's see what happens. All right, so Charlie, we've got some work to do to figure this out, and you're going to have to coordinate this with PVPC to make sure they get on it.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing was, it was an LTA grant, so we got to know how many hours have they already used, and are they like already into 2021 and like into their new projects and all this stuff, and we got to see a finalization of this one way or the other. If I can be helpful to you on this, let me know.
Well,
Okay.
I'll contact Jake first about the map and getting it finished, and and then also Patty. I'll copy
Well,
Patty.
remember Patty's dad went into hospice? She told us that. So,
Yeah.
which she might be dealing with some family concerns.
Issues, yeah.
So let's be a little sensitive around that too.
Okay, well, I'll work with Jake to begin with.
All right. If there's some way I can be helpful to you, Charlie, please let me know. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Is there any more discussion about this aspect of it? Because we got to be ready, if we can, to go to the next meeting of the CPC.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we'll hear by the grant by that time. Okay. Okay, so it's all interconnected. So the next thing is landowner contact. I did follow up and make a contact with the owners of the property that's right next to Durrell's Path. What are those maps numbers here? It's map, it's 12, parcel 10. Very, very pleasant conversation with the son. He easily wants to talk to us. I called him on a snowy day. He says, I'm kind of backed up with snow and work and stuff like that. And he wanted his sister to be present. She lives in North Carolina on a Zoom meeting. Fair enough. I think it's important that the whole family have a connection. He said he'd get back to me, and that was like a week ago. So I'm going to give it another few days or a week or so, and I'll try again to remind him that I'd really like to talk with him. Okay? So that's a report on that. And otherwise, I personally don't have any other reports on any particular properties since our last meeting. I know we haven't actively worked on our Excel sheet because we got all these other things going on. And I'm happy with that, unless somebody wants to specifically report on any particular properties that they've been looking at and want to make sure to get on that Excel sheet. I think I'd like very much to at least get it out to you folks at some point. We haven't really, broadcast it out or sent it out at this point. Janet's been keeping it up to date in a really good way. But we've been, doing all these other things. All right. I also wanted to share this with you. So we talked about our goals for 2021. It's still in draft form. And we can finalize it tonight. When we finalize our goals, I want to have like a key person that takes over responsibility for figuring out where to go with these goals. Okay, it's like, it can't all be me. So if I'm going to read them out, I don't know if you can see them very well. The first one I have there is to finalize the land prioritization Excel sheet. And I think we should be able to complete that within this year and figure out what we're doing with that. We threw out the idea of a town pollinator garden at some point. Somebody suggested that might be at the location where the old Grange building was. That's right on Route 10. It's not a bad idea, I don't think. I like it because it's kind of close to town center. It's town center. That's on the list. Next is to have a community garden. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm splitting these. Pollinator garden. We didn't come up with a suggestion of where. The community garden, when I think of a community garden, I think of a place where somebody can get like an allotment, like they do in England. They have their allotment gardens. We have to have a water source. We have to have it, measured out, probably some guidelines. And quite frankly, I think the Agricultural Commission should at least be approached on whether or not we're going to do a community garden. I think that's a courtesy, and they may have ideas on this. But as far as that goes, we've seen this on our master plan as an idea for something to see in the future. I know there was a lot of gardening going on in 2020 because of the pandemic. A lot of people did gardens where if they had any space to put them. I'm going to keep going unless somebody stops me and says they want to discuss any of these things. Okay.
I'll mention something on the pollinator garden.
Okay.
Based on the experience with North Country Landscapes, I have bought, or we have bought, software to do garden designs.
Oh.
And my former partner in the business, Justin Pellis, he is very knowledgeable. And he and I are involved with some sort of purchase of plants for Look Park.
Yeah.
And so we, in principle, could, I think, weld together those plants and have them brought over to a garden here if you wanted them, and the design. So we have resources to address that in more detail. Slowly, as usual. Okay. That makes sense?
Yeah, but here's the big question. We had talked about, and Randall agreed to turn over the soil at the open space portion of the area that's been protected on Glendale Road. On Pomeroy Meadow Road.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
However, we absolutely cannot use any fertilizer. Not even natural fertilizer, because it's over the, water recharge area. Is it possible, Charlie, do you know the answer to this, as to whether we can do one of these gardens without any fertilizer? And you can go and look at it, whether or not that soil's any good. I was going to do a pH test on it once, and I never did. But
I think I know the expert to be able to address that.
Okay.
And he'd have to pick the plants that would thrive under various conditions. And I don't know if putting some plants in a container would be a way to prevent it from getting into the groundwater. I don't know. I'd just have to ask. Those are questions I think that could be addressed. That's all. Okay.
And there's also no public water source there. So there's no way that it can be watered.
Yeah.
So it has to be very
the number one goal, whenever we talk about gardens, the number one goal is minimal maintenance.
Yep.
Minimal maintenance. And it's reasonable if you're looking for a garden in that plot on Pomeroy Meadow. It's reasonable to think it should have a bench, should have a few evergreens, and maybe temporarily in the fall you put some mums in there or some bulbs in there, and so there's some flowers around. And under those circumstances, maybe minimal amounts of fertilizer and things like that could be
No
used.
fertilizer is going to be allowed. I asked twice.
I know. Okay, fine.
I wish,
But when you get a bulb, it's already, in the package, it's already well nourished, as it were.
good. All right, good.
And that we preserve the land for water protection, but there's no water there.
It is kind of funny, isn't it? Well,
We
there's no
also have to
spigot.
make sure that money was funded by a grant. We have to make sure there aren't any restrictions.
That's a good
Yeah.
point, yeah. All right, I'll just put possible location. At Pomeroy.
46 Pomeroy Meadow.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
Great. Okay, let's keep going. Meadow. And then I had on a list from a while ago the idea of doing a low salt bylaw in our town. I mean, that's a lot of work and putting it together, and maybe we don't want to do it for 2021. Does anyone want to discuss any of that?
What is the low salt bylaw?
It would be a requirement to use reduced salt on, we couldn't do it on our state roads, but we could possibly do it on the other roads. I don't even know the status of what we do right now.
Well, it's going to be a little bit difficult because right now we got a report from Chris and Francine that there are at least 6 bylaws waiting to be approved. There's like 3 waiting to be deleted. And with the legal budget being cut, they're sending out a list and we're going to prioritize it. So it might be possible from a, standpoint of people being able to draft them or whatever, but passing them will be a bit of a challenge.
Okay, I'll just put low salt bylaw, possible discussion and drafting. Whoop.
Does that involve the highway department?
I haven't even done that. No, I haven't talked to anybody. I just had this as,
It would definitely involve the highway department.
Okay.
Yeah. They'd have a strong opinion about that.
yeah, I know. I had an idea that we could put a pollinator garden on top of the landfill mound, the big monster mound that looks like,
Oh,
King Tut's tomb over there.
yeah.
And Randall said, no, he's got to mow it. I said, why? And he says, no, you got to mow it. Because people complain if it's not mowed. Go figure. Okay.
On the low salt bylaw, Mass DOT may be involved in that too because of Route 10.
Yeah.
I didn't think we could even do it on Route 10, but contact Highway Department. I'll put Mass DOT. All right, so it's going to stay on there anyway, just for discussion. It may not be we'll be going to town meeting. Certainly, I know we won't be going to town meeting in 2021. Just discuss it. Then you put down European-style walkway park in town center.
Where is this Grange? Where is this Grange site? Where is that?
Across the street from Town Hall.
I'm sorry?
It's direct. Go ahead. Who's talking? April?
April. Grange used to be right across from the church. It's a little parcel. I don't know if you were in town when the building was still there. It had really substantial, beautiful windows, stained glass windows in it. But the Grange was in really bad structural condition, and a young woman bought it. She sold off the windows, but was not able to build on the property because I don't think it's a legal building lot and perk situation and all that. So it came down and the town ended up with it.
Okay, and it's right opposite the town hall?
Church.
It's opposite the church,
church.
and it abuts
Okay.
the town. It abuts the town hall parking lot.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll look for it.
The town bought it a few years ago with the thinking that regardless of what happens to the building, the old town hall, it could be used for either quick access to Route 10, another egress to Route 10, but also possibly a septic system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this next one, European style walking garden. Can we take off European style? Can we just put walking?
Oh,
park?
sure.
Yeah.
That's unnecessary. It's just a walking garden that's not, completely maintained with lawn and things like that. Just a very nice walkway and nice places to sit, that kind of
Well,
thing.
I also think we should throw the word accessible in, you know, if somebody's has mobility issues. And in my thinking, if you were to look at the maps, I didn't prepare the number here right now, but if you were to go straight up Maple Street next to the town hall on the south side of the town hall, go straight up, come to that corner where Maple and High are, the junction of them. And if you were to then take a left and immediately look to your right, it's pretty much empty land there. And those are two landowners that don't even live in town. And those are part of our target area. And then we already have interest in the person that owns Little Mountain, which is straight up there. To me, that is a potential, if that were to be acquired, that is a potential for a wonderful opportunity for walking and possibly switchbacks. So if people couldn't go up quite steeply, they could do it. And I'd love to see if we could get a grant for developing something like this. So we can just put it on there for now.
Yeah.
That's a good idea to add accessible.
What's that?
I think it's a very good idea to add accessible, because I think that will increase our ability to get grants, and it's the right thing to do.
Is it ADA accessible or just accessible?
What do you mean? What did you say?
Well, ADA, so if they
Yeah, it would be ADA accessible, yes. With accessibility.
There's a lot of wildlife in that area too.
Yeah.
Have you seen a bunch of stuff up there? Yeah?
Well, Josie and Doric, they think they've seen a wolf. There's deer. Yeah, lots of stuff. Kind of cool. Coyote.
It is cool because I walked the property up further with the landowner who I've been talking to. We talked about her last time, Sherry York Whiteley. And she's got a big parcel back there and she's seen a lot of wildlife. Yeah, nice. Okay, Lance, I'm going to take this one off because that's essentially the same thing. Pomeroy Meadow. All right. And then certainly our goal is to connect with the landowners in the 3 target areas with the neighborhood outreach grant if we get that. Complete the Barnes Aquifer education brochure map and distribute it. And support Friends of Open Space to start their fundraising, get members, finalize their 501c3 status. Anybody want to put anything else on for goals?
I'd like to put in something. I sent out about a week ago, 10 days ago, a newsletter that, again, a former business partner has developed for Look Park.
Yeah.
And it had very nice information in it. And it's related also to communicating what the Conservation Commission and what the Open Space Committee has as goals to the regular citizens so they support the work we're doing. And if you noted in that, there's some, it could be something we do once a year or semi-annually to communicate in some manner to the residents what's going on in some of all these properties. Because one of the things I'm sensitive to, as I've mentioned in the past, I see more people using Pomeroy Meadows sidewalk than I think in an average weekend that really hit, and on the 700 acres that we have reserved, it's preserved for water, it's preserved for wildlife, but as far as the people accessing it, I think there probably would take 6 months to have a similar amount of people on that 700 acres versus Pomeroy Meadow. That's what I'm sensitive to, that's all.
Okay, so let me try to sort of summarize what you're saying. You'd like to see better education and communication, perhaps via a newsletter? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, exactly. But it's joint with the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee.
And frankly, with Friends of Open Space, I think if they get their act together, better, well, I'll say not better,
newsletter describing what the conservation and the open space and the parks. When I sent that to Paula Mark, that thing that I sent out 10 days, she immediately responded from Florida. I think she liked that idea.
Who, Paula Mark? Oh, Mac.
Mac.
Okay.
So it's a newsletter concept. A newsletter could be once a year, it could be biannually, or it could even be more frequent if we had the resources to do it.
We don't even need resources. We just throw that into the Southampton newsletter. Getting to know your town.
Is that Robert Floyd's newsletter?
Yeah.
Does he still have irritated politics in that newsletter?
Yes.
Yeah, but he also has a lot of good stuff too.
Okay. Well, we might want to extract what we're doing as good stuff into a separate newsletter.
I think he does a great service for our town. On the other hand, not everybody uses that newsletter, and there's many people. A lot of young people aren't. They're so Facebook focused, and I'm not. But I think let's just keep this going, because I think that this can be sort of massaged as the year goes on. And I think it's a great, okay. Anybody want to add any other, besides that one, anybody want to add anything else on our goals?
I ask a question. I thought that after the, was it BIPAC or whatever had dissolved, wasn't there interest in an additional group across towns? I mean, is there any opportunity in terms of a goal to work collaboratively with neighboring towns?
I think PVPC took the idea of our brochure and have it tailored particularly to Easthampton and Westfield and Holyoke, and have essentially the same format and have it distributed that way, at least the same concept, the same regulations, which might be very specific to the towns that adopt it. And that was her idea. That was Patty's idea.
Mm-hmm. I just wonder, in terms of our goals, if there might be some way we can connect with the 4 neighboring towns as just information sharing, generating ideas, collaborative grants or otherwise. I mean, just seems like it might be a nice thing to think about, what goal we could have that collaborates with neighboring towns relative to open space. I mean, the Easthampton line, remember the property that we kind of shared with Easthampton?
Yeah.
See what other, Holyoke, I know you've talked to people there.
Yes.
We could do something collaboratively.
Well, I think that's an important point. So I put that down. Collaborate with neighboring towns relative to open space issues. I know that property that, did it go through sale yet, April, the one on Lead Mine? It's still in a buy-sell situation right now. Anyway, it's a piece of property that goes right into Westhampton. So we've got Westhampton, we've got over in the Manhattan area, way over, we've got Huntington, and we certainly have Easthampton. We have
Westfield. Don't forget Westfield. Yeah.
I think it's absolutely important that we do that and collaborate with neighboring towns. We have to take the lead in some of these because they're big towns, big cities. And the more I think about this, our town is pretty unique and pretty special. We are a small town. We are town government. Yes, the hill towns are town government, but we're nestled between these fairly large municipalities, Northampton, Easthampton, Holyoke, and Westfield. So I love the idea of collaborating with neighboring towns relative to open space and all the issues of climate resiliency and all those other aspects too. Great. I just wonder if anybody, I got an email from Kestrel. Maybe you got this, Marla, also, because I know you are on their email list. Wait a sec, it just came. Here it is. Did you see this one, Marla? The virtual 50th celebration invitation. And thank you. So as I went down, did you know that President Biden has, he's called for the conservation, it's called the 30-30 vision. President Biden's executive order calls for conservation of 30% of the U.S. land base by 2030. And I really want to look into that a little bit more. I don't know if that means more opportunity for funding, for, actively doing some of the things we think are really important. And it's focused on pure drinking water, healthy food, clean air, habitat for wildlife, places for people to reflect, recreate, hunt, and fish. Does that sound like open space goals? It does. And it also provides for the protection of natural disasters such as floods and droughts, and absorbs and keeps carbon from the Earth's atmosphere. Talk about good, huh? At least that's how I see it. So I just got this the other day. This email, but I want to find out a little bit more about that and see if there's funding opportunities for that, and certainly educational opportunities. But all of this is here. Okay. Does anybody want to either table this for further discussion, or can we at least?
May I just make one more suggestion, Mrs. Janet?
Oh, sure.
What about a bird sanctuary in one of our pieces of property? I know there's a program called Foresters for the Birds.
Okay.
Land that is in conservation restriction. That's another function that they do, is to cut the trees and leave them for certain kinds of birds. And it's called Foresters for the Birds. And allow birds to come in and do what they do. And I just think that would be beautiful to have a bird sanctuary somewhere, maybe in the Manhattan Meadows somewhere, or
well, we at this point, Kestrel has set up at least one a bird box for kestrels. And they maintain it too, because it has to be cleaned every year. And the Conservation Commission sends out or forwards the kestrel review of the site and where they're if it was successful in breeding and so on. So we have at least a start at the Zipta Conservation Farm.
Great. But you know what? None of us knew about that. You did, Charlie.
Yeah.
But so I think a bird sanctuary in one or more of the town conservation's land work with Concom.
Yeah.
I mean, these are Concom lands, so we need to make sure they're in approval of that. That's a great idea, Janet.
But over on Clearwater, where it's so wooded, I understand that would not be a good place to talk to kestrel.
Absolutely. And also, if, Clearwater is a good opportunity but it's surrounded by residential development. It's not a problem, but there are residential development, in some aspects of it. However, if we were to get this other land up on what's now called Durrell's Path, that may change from what Marla tells me, the name of it. But if we were to get the extra land, wouldn't that be a great place for a bird sanctuary? Because there really is not a lot of residential development right around there.
We're doing it on Little Mountain, so there's opportunities everywhere.
Absolutely. Well, I've got tons of birds in my backyard, and I'm having a blast just watching them, including a pheasant. His name is Phil the pheasant. Okay. All right. So I'm ready to either take more or to finalize this. And of course, we can always add to it. Anybody want to make a motion to accept this? Or should we keep going and talk about it in another meeting?
I think this is really, I think we've got like 12 items on there, one a month. That's
yeah.
We got a lot of work.
What I'm not going to do tonight, but I'm going to send this out, and I'm just going to send this thing to you, and you can just integrate it right into the minutes, is to have people assign themselves to kind of taking the lead on some of these. Unless you want to speak up right now. And does anybody want to offer to take the lead on any? I got Charlie on.
The Bonds Aquifer thing.
Yeah, you're there. Yeah.
I'll do the bird sanctuary.
You'll do that? Great.
I'll keep you in. And if there's, again, for the pollinator garden, I can volunteer the resources to come up with a design and plans.
Well, you got to take the whole initiative to pull it all together. Sorry.
Well, we have to define, at least I can come up with the ideas as to what plants are appropriate on a piece of property that you cannot use any fertilizer whatsoever. I'll get that
All
information.
right, great.
As well as, again, we can come up with we have the software, we have the computer to give you a design,
Okay.
that once we make a decision on the piece of property, how is it treated, and is there much sun there, et cetera. Once we have that, we could come up with the plants, I think, and the design. So you can put my name down for that, okay?
Okay,
That's fine.
it's there. All right. So I'm going to do the Excel sheet with Janet and myself, right?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Anybody else want to speak up right now? You don't have to if you.
I apologize, but I am not going to put my hand up.
Okay, no apologies needed.
Okay.
Do you want, Rini, I know you're really busy. Do you want to talk?
I'll just think about it a little bit. It seems to
Okay.
be like there are some things that there's a huge range in, what the projects involve. I mean,
Yeah.
collaborate with neighbor towns. Some of them just seem very kind of specific and somewhat clear that we're going to be able to do it in 2021. Other ones seem a little bit more amorphous.
You're right. But it would just be like the
walking
beginning.
park. I mean, I think we have to just define things a little bit tighter and what our goals are.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. So let's keep this going. How about if we just do it that way? All right. So Janet, I will email that to you for the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I would like very much to call another meeting for 2 weeks from tonight. Rini, you said that the MVP programs, you couldn't quite remember the dates.
I think the plan is to 24 and 25. They're talking about a 3 o'clock and a 6 o'clock workshop
On both those dates?
on both of those days with Fuss and O'Neill. But there hasn't been a confirmation yet. I did ask Ed, since it's actually getting very close to then, to just, get the ball going. We made a very long list of possible stakeholders.
I'd like to call the meeting for the 25th at 6 o'clock. Do you feel you need to attend, Rini?
Oh, we would only attend one of the 4.
I see. Oh, got it. Okay, that's good.
But,
So
logically, I would, wouldn't be able to probably do the 3. So I would have to go with the Wednesday or the Thursday. And that is a week of a select board meeting too. Our select board meeting went to midnight Tuesday night. So I can't promise anything.
Got it. Don't promise. I'd like to tentatively just go ahead and set it up for the 25th for 6 o'clock. And then hopefully by then, there'll be a few more bits of information that we have. And Charlie, in the meantime, you can get some quotes on some of the other stuff that we need the quotes on.
Yeah.
And then this will all precede the CPC meeting in March. So we'll be a little firmer on some of that stuff. Okay. And the other thing is, I have already started to draft out the report of the Open Space Committee for the all-town report. Mm-hmm. And I would love to at least run that by everybody and just see if there's something I've missed or something that shouldn't be there, et cetera. So I'm going to send that out in draft form. Once again, we don't discuss business on email. So if you see it, you can make your comments and ideas, but that will be on the agenda for our meeting on the 25th. And that is due on March 1st. So I'm going to have to finalize it right after that. I'm not prepared to give you a full draft tonight. Okay. Very good. And that's all I've got. Does anybody else have any other business to bring tonight? No.
No, not me.
Does anybody, all right, so we got 2 meetings scheduled. One is the 25th at 6, and the other one that we already scheduled is March 11th at 6. All right, and so do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Everybody's in favor. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Rini, I hope you don't have to go out tonight. Good luck.
I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm too old for this,
Take care.
Cindy.
I've
Take
been
care.
there.
Bye-bye.
There you are.
Bye.
Good night.